Had a fantastic night's sleep here. It's so peaceful on this island in the middle of the river, amongst all the wildlife, which we often find in our beds and on us.
There's no roads in and out of here. Everything's carried by water taxi. It's amazing to think that everything on this island, everything from the smallest nut and bolt and grain of rice, has had to be brought here by boat. The riverboatmen here are really highly trained, although they have to do their apprenticeship for a few years. Most of the rocks are just underneath the surface of the water, so they've memorised every single rock and every overfall in the whole river.
You and me, we're family. The bond that we share is as deep as the sea. No matter how rough things may come to be, you and me, we're family.
We're only going to go our own house now. I'm her roommate.
I have my own cabin because... I have my own cabin, but Ewan decided to stay with me. I found the cockroach. No one gave me a pre-warning. There was a massive cockroach right there.
Where?
Right there. But there's a little spider right there, and it's just been crawling around here the whole night. So we've kind of been terrified that it's going to go in someone's bed. But oh, and that's my little pet moth.
I have loads of moths.
So we've just come to do yoga before breakfast in this amazing swimming platform, and there's about 4 or 5 monkeys in the trees. I can't believe that actually sometimes they do eat monkeys in the jungle. They're kind of allowed, each animal has a sort of hunting season, and it's a very short time, and that's when they're allowed to hunt certain animals. So sometimes it might be deer, it might be monkey. They're never allowed to hunt any of the cats like puma, jaguar, which are found in the forest as well. Ewan had a gecko in his bed last night. I think I had a little beetle.
I just woke up early because I wanted to go see the monkeys, and then I just hear this rustling outside. I look outside and there's this like capybara looking thing. Capybaras are like the biggest rodents in the world.
It's like dinner.
Breakfast like dinner.
I don't know why, but I expected this to be a couple of tents in the wood, and I thought that's what we were expecting. I didn't realise it was going to be like pancakes, yogurts, and like toast for breakfast. This is unbelievable, it's so good.
We've taken the canoes to the middle of the stream where there's some rocks, and apparently there's piranhas all around here, which is a bit worrying because we had a very leaky canoe, so we were kind of bailing all the way here. And we've got some chicken, and we're going to give it a try.
So this is the way that the locals do their lines. It's very unlike my rod, and hoping, yeah, that's how they do it. 1, 2, 3, let go.
The other things in the river, there's caiman, there's stingrays, piranha, snakes of various types. But it's funny when you hear about it from the west and you hear about it, it sounds like a nightmare, but actually when you hear it, it's quite beautiful, and that threat just adds to the kind of the adventurous spirit of the place as well. We've got Arenka and the other 2 kids here swimming in the river.
So we're doing the Kalabash workshop, which is learning to carve out a calabash. First you have to cook it so that it's stronger, and then we have to take the flesh out of the middle. So after cooking, now you have to get like the rest of the inside out.
Just scoop it out. This is very soft.
Then you carve a design of your choice on the outside.
departing from Danpaati and heading to Pikinslee. It's about 15 minutes downstream, and it is a traditional village where you have a maroon museum, the first of its kind in this area. Here in Pikinslee.
A lot of the villages around here were set up in the 18th century by escaped slaves. The slaves escaped from the plantations and set up villages in the jungle itself. And from that, a kind of whole culture grew.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Black-capped heron. Past few months, the amount of guests have been minimal. This one also shows the Suriname River with all of the villages, maroon villages. We have
We went to see a museum dedicated to the original founders, but to get to that we had to walk through one of the villages, and I think we were the only tourists that they'd seen in about 3 months because of the coronavirus. I mean, obviously our group is in its own bubble because we're all kind of sailors off the same pontoon and across the Atlantic, so we know we're all okay, but obviously we wore our masks, and because the village is in itself its own sort of isolated bubble, they weren't wearing masks. And while 90% of them were kind of quite friendly, there was a bit of hostility. We did have COVID shouted at us a few times, and one person shouted, "Tourists go home," from the window. So there is quite a lot of suspicion surrounding it. Well, strangely enough, when we got to the museum, there was a poster, one of the early posters, where before the coronavirus really kind of took off, saying that only wear masks if you have coronavirus. Which kind of got us thinking maybe that the people thought that because we were wearing masks that we all had coronavirus.
It means don't use a face mask.
Don't use a face mask.
Don't use
Okay.
when you're not sick or when you are in contact, no contact with a person who is infected. En dan in Dutch, laten maskers voor de mensen die dat nodig hebben. It means leave the face masks for the people who need it.
So do you think that's why the villagers are a bit suspicious of us all wearing masks?
I think that's why they're looking so weird, and that all the children are screaming "Corona, Corona!"
Ah, so they think because we're wearing a mask, we have corona. Okay.
This is not a good sign.
every traditional village at the main entrance will have the asampao. It's meant to keep out evil spirits. On the right we have the main entrance of the village done. And because it's the main entrance, you have the asampao, the sacred palm gate. It's to keep out evil spirits. Every family has spirits living with them. The ancestors who are protected by the spirits during their fleeing into the forest. They built a house for those spirits inside of the forest, and at certain points in a year they will go and place offerings. And to enter that hut, you will have to pass underneath the leaf gate, the asampao.
So this is what the Centre of Prayer altar looks like.
Men and women have their own house. They will sleep with each other when the man is in the village, or if the woman comes and visits the man in his village. But they will have their own separate house to store all of their own belongings.
This is a woman's hut where a woman used to live, and it's slightly different design. The doorway is lower because they said if it was ever invaded, it was harder to pull the women out of the doorway, and any invaders had to sort of duck down to get inside, and it gave the women more a chance to pop them on the head before they could get in.
But she will have other tools in the house. She will have the pots, the pans, bowls to eat of course, and the more pots and pans the women have, the more wealth they are displaying. But later on they got aluminium, and let's say 100 years ago aluminium was rare. It was even more expensive than iron. So if your husband went to the city and returned with aluminium as a present, that nice shiny metal that could dent but would not break, it was something of great value. So this is a pangi. You can wear it in many different ways. The women tie it around their waist, just like you would do your towel. The men will tie it around their shoulders. Young girls, when they reach puberty, they will be presented with some goods by their aunt. They will receive a few pots, a few pans, and a scarf like this. The scarf will be presented to her first lover. So if you see a woman wearing that, then you know, hey, she is already married or she has kids.
This is a traditional male hut, and the first half with their workshop where they store their tools, and in the back is where they used to sleep.
And this would be a man with good money. The poor man's houses would simply be a hut with a hammock. Women mostly take care of the children. The girls and the boys will stay with the mother most of the time. And when the boys reach a certain age, the father will start teaching him how to become a man. And the brother of the mother will take him under his wing, will start the apprenticeship and teach him the ropes. He will teach him how to build a hut, and that's usually at the age of 15, 16. Eventually, when he grows older, he will get a wife. He will have to build her a hut. But by that time, he's an experienced builder in the traditional way. Now things are different because the boys, they go to school in Paramaribo, so this knowledge, it's often lost.
And this is a fertility statue or a fertility symbol showing the genitalia of the male and the female parts. Fertility was celebrated quite a lot in this culture. So this is a workshop that used to be used by the men, and down below they could work when it was raining because it was sheltered, and then upstairs is where they stored all of their tools.
When they are in the village or in the forest, then you need to be covered so you can work even if it is raining. But all of the grains and seeds would be stored up there. And the tools they put here are used to make cassava bread. Cassava root is grounded. The moisture is squeezed out because it contains traces of cyanide. Put it in a press shaped like a woven tube. By cooking it, you evaporate the cyanide and you make it useful again.
And now the village has a contemporary workshop where they're making things out of wood.
And this was a traditional sugarcane press before the days of electricity and pumps and things. They used to manually squeeze the sugarcane by putting it on that little ledge there and then taking a big stick and crushing down on it.
He's placing the sugarcane in between this base and the hole, and then he's pressing down and squeezing it and crushing it. Yeah. And all of the juice will collect in a can, and then you can drink it. At the head of the whole tribe, all of the village, you have the grand chief, as we call him, the grand man, the grand man. Here you can also see a few captains. village elders, village chiefs, and you can see the old style of their uniform. The drums, the beating drums, the speaking drums, because now we have mobile phones and they had a different rhythm for each message. People knew how to interpret it. So this was what work on the plantation would look like. These drawings are very popular. These are drawings from John Gabriel Stedman. So he drew a lot of what he saw happening on the plantations. This was being called strung up, as you see, and then the lady would be whipped. You can see the men with the whips. Many freedom fighters fled into the forest to come back and attack the plantations to free more slaves. And this is a picture of one of those freedom fighters. The peace treaties happened with the Saamaka. They were the first one to sign the peace treaties. We also interpret these peace treaties as a divide and conquer. They would be acknowledged as free people and would have the right to stay in the village in the forest. But they had to register that village and they were not allowed to move anymore. So the government wanted to keep you in that place, know where you were at any certain time, and you should not move. But this tool was also to put fear in the hearts of the plantation owners because of the noise it made.
So the museum was really interesting, and it isn't really that different to the way that the villagers live now. I think that's why it makes it so interesting.
So it's strange that how many modern day things have made it into the middle of the jungle. I mean, coming down we saw just about every boat rider on his mobile phone, and we have seen the mast sticking out through the middle of the trees. So even though it's got no infrastructure, it definitely has got Wi-Fi and mobile connection. Also, we saw one of the ladies wearing a Manchester United towel as a skirt.
Every family has its own farm. So that's why sometimes you have to go very deep into the forest. Because if every family would have their farm close to the forest, there would be no forest around the village left. So everybody spreads into the forest, and the part of the forest belonging to your family, that's where you can make your farm.
The women don't have the farm, near their village. They travel to the farm because otherwise there'll be just a lot of flattened area near the village. They go into the forest to their area, and because there's no roads, a lot of them will travel on canoes, and it isn't easy because there's so many strong currents here. I mean, we've just been on the little wooden canoe here. It's very similar to the ones they use, and it's almost impossible to steer it because the currents just take the bow off in like different directions all the time. You end up just going around in circles. It just seems to be naturally sustainable the way they do it. I think that's probably the most fascinating thing, how connected they are. Every plant has some use, and they know so much about that. They've been doing it for hundreds of years. They've cleared just a small area of the forest to do their farm. It's within the family. You have certain rights in the forest, and they never cut down their sacred trees.
Especially to please the spirits, because this is a very important place for them.
They still make offerings. There's still that kind of hope that, if you make offerings to the gods and you look after certain aspects of the forest, things will go well for you. Right, that's it, we're back again. A big thanks for watching, and especially thanks to our patrons who make these videos possible. If you'd like to become part of the Patreon family, then follow the link in the description below, or just put Mothership Adrift Patreon and I'll take you to the right place. We would really love to hear from you, so if you'd like to leave comments, then go to our Facebook page or Instagram, or even to our Patreon page where you can connect to us immediately.
And if you want to do it, do it.
Hey, along for the ride, ho. Hey, I'll stay by your side, ho. Hey, you'll always be